The samurai are remembered today as Japan's most iconic warriors, but they were not always at the top of society. In the beginning, they were simply servants, armed retainers hired to protect the estates of wealthy families. Over time, through war, loyalty, and discipline, they rose from humble beginnings to become the rulers of an entire nation. This is the story of the rise of the samurai. In the early centuries, Japan was a land divided. The emperor existed, but real power lay in the hands of aristocrats and landowning clans. These nobles controlled vast estates filled with rice fields and villages. But such wealth brought danger. Bandits threatened farmers, and rival clans often sent raiders to steal land or tax revenue. To protect their property, the nobles hired armed men. These warriors were the first samurai. The word samurai comes from saburao, meaning to serve. At first, their role was simple: protect the estate, serve the family, and fight when ordered. But as generations passed, they became more organized, more skilled, and more respected. By the 10th century, powerful clans such as the Fujiwara, the Taira, and the Minamoto relied heavily on samurai warriors. They were no longer just hired muscle. They began to form private armies. A samurai was rewarded with land or with stipends of rice, which made him part of the growing warrior class. He wore distinctive armor, carried weapons, and began to separate from common farmers. Slowly, a new identity was being forged, the identity of the samurai. Their rise to real power came through bloodshed. In the late 12th century, Japan was torn apart by the Genpei War. The Taira clan and the Minamoto clan fought a brutal conflict that lasted for years. Battles raged across the islands, with samurai archers on horseback loosing arrows at full gallop, while swordsmen clashed in deadly duels. One famous warrior, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, became a legend for his brilliant tactics and daring victories. The war ended in 1185 with the defeat of the Taira at the Battle of Dan no Ura, a dramatic naval clash where entire fleets fought to the death. Minamoto no Yoritomo, Yoshitsune's elder brother, seized power and became Japan's first shogun. The title of shogun meant commander of the armies. And although the emperor remained on the throne as a spiritual figurehead, real authority now belonged to the military government, or shogunate. This was a revolution. The samurai were no longer servants of nobles. They were the very foundation of government. The rise of the samurai had truly begun. Under the Kamakura shogunate, which lasted from the late 12th to the 14th century, samurai became the administrators of Japan. They ruled provinces, collected taxes, enforced laws, and maintained order. The new government was built on warrior values: loyalty, discipline, and service. Yet their power was tested almost immediately by a threat from across the sea. In the 13th century, the Mongols under Kublai Khan demanded that Japan submit. When the shogunate refused, massive invasion fleets set sail. In 1274, Mongol soldiers landed on Japanese shores. The samurai, accustomed to duels and ritualized combat, suddenly faced a new style of war: massed infantry, bombs, and coordinated assaults. The samurai fought bravely, but it was a struggle. After days of bloody fighting, a massive storm struck, destroying much of the Mongol fleet. The Japanese called it kamikaze, the divine wind. A second invasion came in 1281, larger and more dangerous than the first. Again, the samurai fought fiercely, defending the beaches and fortifications. And once again, a typhoon struck, annihilating the Mongol ships. The samurai had survived, and their legend grew. They were seen not only as warriors, but as protectors of the nation, shielded by the gods themselves. Yet the invasions came at a cost. The shogunate could not reward every samurai with land, and many grew restless. Still, the samurai endured, and their influence deepened. They had proven themselves as the guardians of Japan. By the 14th and 15th centuries, Japan entered an age of chaos. The authority of the shogunate weakened, and powerful feudal lords, known as daimyo, raised their own armies of samurai. This era became known as the Sengoku period, the age of warring states. For over a century, Japan was torn apart by constant war. Castles were built, alliances were broken, and samurai armies clashed in endless battles. It was during this time that the samurai truly defined their identity. The katana became their symbol, replacing the bow as the soul of the warrior. They perfected their martial skills, but also embraced discipline, strategy, and loyalty. The Sengoku period produced some of Japan's greatest warlords, Oda Nobunaga, who used guns and ruthless tactics to seize power; Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who unified much of Japan and even launched invasions of Korea; and Tokugawa Ieyasu, who emerged victorious at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, creating a new shogunate that would last for over 250 years. The rise of the samurai was not only about warfare, they became the guardians of Japanese culture. A samurai was expected to master poetry, calligraphy, and the tea ceremony, as well as the sword. Their influence extended into every part of society. Farmers worked the land, artisans crafted goods, merchants traded. But it was the samurai who stood above them, enforcing order and stability. When Tokugawa Ieyasu established the Tokugawa shogunate, the samurai reached the peak of their rise. No longer just warriors, they were the ruling class of Japan. They were paid in rice stipends, wore their swords as symbols of status, and lived according to the values that had carried them from humble beginnings to national power. From servants hired to protect rice fields, the samurai had risen to command provinces and govern millions. They had endured foreign invasions, survived civil wars, and built a system of rule that lasted for centuries. Their story is one of transformation, from protectors to rulers to the soul of Japan itself. The samurai rose because Japan needed order. They thrived because of their loyalty, discipline, and courage. And they endured because they became more than just fighters. They became a class that defined an entire nation's history. Even today, when we think of Japan's past, it is the samurai who stand tall. Their rise was long, bloody, and difficult, but it shaped the very identity of Japan. From humble retainers to masters of the realm, this was the rise of the samurai.